Ladies and gentlemen, the Alabama Senate will now come to order. Our prayer today will be delivered by Pastor David Little of Southside Baptist Church in Southside. Pastor Little is a guest of Senator Jones.
Let's pray together. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you that we have a moment to pause and recognize how you are in control of all things. Lord, I pray that we would be about your business today, your agenda, your priorities. Lord, that you would give us discernment and wisdom. Lord, a spirit of unity that would not be easily broken. And Lord, for the many burdens in this room, you know every single one. Lord, whether it's brokenness or the sickness, Lord, I pray that your peace will come into each person's life. Lord, that word of encouragement, whatever it may be later today, that we would know that you've heard our prayer and that you've answered it. Lord, we thank you that we can gather together in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Today, the pledge will be led by Lola Kate Haynes. Lola Kate attends Fairview Middle School in Coleman, Alabama. Lola Kate is paging for the Lieutenant Governor's office.
Attention, salute, pledge.
All right, thank you, Lola Kate. Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Allen, Mr. Barfoot, Mr. Beasley, Mr. Bell, Mr. Butler, Mr. Carnley, Mr. Chambliss, Mr. Chasteen, Ms. Coleman Madison, Mr. Elliott, Ms. Figures, Mr. Gavan, Mr. Gudger, Mr. Hatcher, Mr. Hovey, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kitchens, Mr. Livingston, Mr. Melson, Mr. Orr, Mr. Price, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Sessions, Mr. Shelnut, Mr. Singleton, Mr. Smithman, Mr. Stewart, Mr. Stutz, Mr. Wagner, Ms. Weaver, Mr. Williams.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are 24 senators present, which is a quorum. The Senate's ready to transact business.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move that we excuse absent senators.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move that we dispense with the reading of the journal from the previous legislative day and that we adopt said journal.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Now move on to introduction of bills. Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Make a motion we allow for the introduction of bills throughout the day.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you, Senator Jones. All right, now move on to committee reports. The Secretary call the first committee.
From the Committee on County and Municipal Government, Senate Bill number 5 receives a favorable report with substitute by a vote of 6 ayes, 1 nay, and 2 abstentions. From the Committee on County and Municipal Government, Senate Bill number 142 receives a favorable report by a vote of 8 ayes and 0 nays. From County and Municipal Government, Senate Bill number 158 receives a favorable report by a vote of 8 ayes and 0 nays. From County and Municipal Government, Senate Bill number 171 receives a favorable report by a vote of 8 ayes and 0 nays.
All right, these bills received a second reading to be placed on the calendar for next legislative day. This concludes committee reports. Now move on to motions and resolutions. Before we go to motions and resolutions, hold on. We're going to do House messages, all right? Secretary, call the first House message.
About 5 or 6. Message from the Lieutenant Governor. Senate confirmation number 109, appointing Joe Lambrecht to the Agricultural Exhibition Center Corporation Board of Trustees is referred to the Committee on Confirmations. Message from the Lieutenant Governor, Senate confirmation number 110, appointing Eddie Harper to the Board of Heating, Air Conditioning, and Refrigeration Contractors is referred to the Committee on Confirmations. Message from the Lieutenant Governor, Senate confirmation number 111, appointing Dwayne Jenkins to the Board of Heating, Air Conditioning, and Refrigeration Contractors is referred to the Committee on Confirmations. From the Lieutenant Governor, Senate confirmation number 112, appointing Lance Byrd to the Alabama Firefighters Personnel Standards and Education Commission is referred to the Committee on Confirmations. Firefighters Personnel Standards and Education Commission. From the Lieutenant Governor, Senate confirmation number 113, appointing Matt Missildine to the Alabama Firefighters Personnel Standards and Education Commission is referred to the Committee on Confirmations. Message from the Lieutenant Governor, Senate confirmation number 114, appointing Donnie Chasteen to the Alabama Workforce Board is referred to the Committee on Confirmations. From the Jefferson County Commission, Senate confirmation number 115, appointing Brad Fuller to the Agriculture Exhibition Center Corporation Board of Directors is referred to the Committee on Confirmations.
I need this because I don't know how to spell. We need to see all of them. You need all of them? That's all right. I've already sent the first page.
Can y'all take some of these, House first? Message from the House.
You need all of them?
Mr. President, the House of Representatives has originated and passed the following House bill and ordered same sent forthwith to the Senate without engrossment. House Bill number 191 by Representatives Baker and Wood, D, regarding sales and use tax is referred to the Committee on County and Municipal Government. Signed, John Treadwell, Clerk. Message from the House, Mr. President. The House of Representatives has originated and passed the following House bill and ordered same sent forthwith to the Senate without engrossment. House Bill number 168 by Representative Treadaway regarding local emergency management organizations is referred to the Committee on Veterans and Military Affairs. Signed, John Treadwell, Clerk. Message from the House, Mr. President. The House of Representatives has originated and passed the following House bill and ordered same sent forthwith to the Senate without engrossment. House Bill number 52 by Representatives Garrett and Almond regarding income taxes is referred to the Committee on Finance, Taxation, General Fund. I'm assuming that's General Fund. Message from the House, Mr. President. The House of Representatives has originated and passed the following House bill and ordered same sent forthwith to the Senate without engrossment. House Bill number 243 by Representatives Witt and Sellers relating to taxation is referred to the Committee on Fiscal Responsibility and Economic Development. Signed, John Treadwell, Clerk. Message from the House, Mr. President. The House of Representatives has originated and passed the following House bill and ordered same sent forthwith to the Senate without engrossment. House Bill number 190 by Representative Shaver regarding adoption is referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Signed, John Treadwell, Clerk. Message from the House, Mr. President. The House of Representatives has originated and passed the following House bill and ordered same sent forthwith to the Senate without engrossment. House Bill number 79 by Representative Brown relating to off-label medical treatment is referred to the Committee on Health Care. Signed, John Treadwell, Clerk. Message from the House, Mr. President. The House of Representatives has originated and passed the following House bill and ordered same sent forthwith to the Senate without engrossment. House Bill number 213 by Representative Gidley relating to Calhoun County with notice and proof is referred to the Committee on Local Legislation. Message from the House, Mr. President. The House of Representatives has originated and passed the following House bill and ordered same sent forthwith to the Senate without engrossment. House Bill number 215 by Representative Roberts regarding Calhoun County with notice and proof is referred to the Committee on Local Legislation. Signed, John Treadwell, Clerk. Message from the House. Mr. President, the House of Representatives has originated and passed the following House bill and ordered same sent forthwith to the Senate without engrossment. House Bill number 210 by Representatives Wood, R, relating to Calhoun County with notice and proof is referred to the Committee on Local Legislation. Signed, John Treadwell, Clerk.
All right, that concludes House messages.
Mr. President.
How are you?
I'm blessed. I like you ask that question. I can answer it the way I usually answer it. I say I'm blessed by the best, and I try not to worry about the rest.
Good deal.
You know, so that otherwise I'm doing pretty good. You know, pretty good.
Well, good to see you.
It's good to see you.
Yeah.
When we get a moment, I'd like to be recognized.
You can take that moment right now if you'd like.
Yes, sir.
You're recognized.
Thank you very much. Members, I'm going to share with you out today's moment of Black history. Our moment today is talking about the Birmingham Black Barons. The Birmingham Black Barons professional baseball team was a member of the Negro League from 1920 to 1960 and was considered the jewel of the Southern black baseball. The racial segregation policies in the United States during most of the 20th century barred African Americans from playing many professional sports. The Black Barons and the other teams of the Negro League gave African Americans an opportunity to play baseball at the professional level. From the 1920s to the 1940s, the Birmingham Black Barons were among the most successful baseball teams in the Negro League and featured some of the greatest players to ever play the game. 5 Black Barons, George Muse Suttles, Leroy Satchel Page, Willie Wells, Bill Foster, and Willie Mays were inducted into the National League Baseball Hall of Fame. The first Black Baron team emerged in the years following World War I, primarily from players who competed in the Industrial League. Industrial League games between teams from Reciproco, Corner Steel, Stockham Valves and Fittings, and other companies were huge in Birmingham and could easily draw 5,000 spectators. In 1920, the Black Barons became the charter member of the 8-team Negro Southern League, a minor league organization. In 1923, the Negro National League, organized by Ruby Foster, granted Birmingham the opportunity to have a major league franchise, and the Black Barons joined the Negro Major League. In 1927, the Black Barons played for the National League title, losing to the Chicago American Giants. Due to financial problems caused by the Great Depression, the team moved back to the minor league for most of the 1930s. The Black Barons played their home games at Rickwood Field when the White Barons were not playing, and on alternate Sundays. But in 1910, Rickwood Field is the nation's oldest baseball park in use today. Ball games were important, even serving as a diversion to the evils of segregation and the source of pride and accomplishments in the African American communities. Negro League ball players were considered role models and heroes. When the Black Barons played Sunday home games, local pastors would often dismiss their congregations before noon, telling their parishioners that they would meet them at the game. In 1939, the Black Barons were purchased by a Memphis undertaker named Tom Hayes. And over the next decade, the greatest teams in the franchise history emerged, winning 3 Negro American League pennants in 1943, 44, and 48. Additionally, during that 10-year period, 12 different Black Barons played in the annual Negro League East-West All-Star Game, played at Chicago Comiskey Park. When Jackie Robinson broke baseball's color barrier in 1946, the hard-fought goal of the Negro League was finally realized. Unfortunately, it also ushered in the demise of the Negro League. In 1948, the Black Barons and the Homestead Grays met in the last Negro League World Series. And in 1959, after 3 unsuccessful attempts in winning the Negro League World Series, the Black Barons finally won the Negro League Championship. The Black Barons played their last season in 1963. The history of the Birmingham Black Barons and the Negro League is showcased in the Negro Southern League Museum located in Birmingham, Alabama. And that is our moment for the day in Black history. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members.
Thank you, Senator Smithman. All right, we are on motions and resolutions. Any motions or resolutions? All right, Senator Allen.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. Got a SJR.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the SJR.
Senate Joint Resolution number 23 by Senator Allen, commending Coach Nick Saban for being inducted into the National Football Foundation College Football Hall of Fame.
Mr. President,
Senator Allen.
I thank everyone who is in this chamber and in this House probably knows all about Coach Saban already and the historic value that he's made, not only with the University of Alabama, but for the entire world of college athletics. And at this time, Mr. President, I move that we add all senators to the resolution.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
As well, I would love to ask to pass this, but I'd like for the SJR be read at length.
All right, Secretary, read the SJR.
Senate Joint Resolution commending Nick Saban for being inducted into the National Football Foundation College Football Hall of Fame. Whereas highest commendations and congratulations are herein proudly presented to Coach Nick Saban for being inducted in the National Football Foundation College Football Hall of Fame. Whereas Nick Saban, a 7-time national championship coach, is the 5th Alabama coach to be elected to the College Football Hall of Fame. He completed his Hall of Fame career at the conclusion of the 2023 season, winning 6 national championships with Alabama and 7 overall, with his first title coming at LSU in 2003. Whereas a 9-time National Coach of the Year, Coach Saban coached collegiate football for 28 seasons, producing a 297-71-1 record, including a 206-29 mark in Tuscaloosa. His teams at Alabama won 9 SEC championships, while he captured an additional 2 more SEC titles with LSU in 2001 and 2003. Whereas Coach Saban prepared his players for the National Football League at a staggering rate, coaching 52 first-round draft picks in his career, the most by any coach in college football history, including 47 at Alabama. During his time in Tuscaloosa, 133 of his players were drafted into the NFL, with an astonishing 91 going in the first 3 rounds of the draft. And whereas in 2021, Bryce Young became Coach Saban's 4th Heisman Trophy winner, tying for the most of any coach in college football history. Saban is the only coach to ever coach Heisman Trophy winners at 3 different positions. And whereas when Coach Saban arrived on campus, the Alabama football program had just 6 individual national award winners, but Saban helped his players secure over 60 national awards during his time. His players at Alabama won 66 All-American honors by 58 different individuals. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the legislature of Alabama, both houses thereof concurring, that Coach Nick Saban is highly congratulated for being inducted into the National Football Foundation College Football Hall of Fame, and we hereby dedicate this resolution to him with the utmost admiration, along with sincere best wishes for continued success in all future endeavors.
Mr. President, I move passage.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
I also would like to congratulate you and the Auburn Nation for the great victory in Tuscaloosa, but always to be another day.
War Eagle, Senator Allen. All right. Any other motions or resolutions?
Mr. President, I'd like to send this to rules.
All right. Secretary Reed received the resolution, send it to rules. Any other motions or resolutions?
Senate Joint Resolution number 24 by Senator Chambliss, commending Mr. Joseph Chambliss and Mrs. Geraldine Maria Chambliss for outstanding achievement and dedication to their native state of Alabama, is referred to the Committee on Rules.
All right, Senator Wagner. I'm sorry, do you have one, Shay? Senator Shelnut?
Can I have a point of personal privilege?
You're recognized.
I need to apologize. Senator Smitherman, if you would listen up, please. I got to apologize to my colleagues because Senator Smitherman might be a little ill this week because my girl's from Hayden. We all know how much he loves coaching basketball, but his coaching is over for the year because my girl's from Hayden.
Boys.
I mean, my boy's from Hayden. Hey.
My girl's still in there battling it. They ain't gone yet.
His girl's still
boys,
out.
the boys.
My boys sent Senator Smithman home. So sorry about that. I hope he's not real ill this week. So I wanted to apologize. Thank you, Senator Smithman.
Well, thank you, Senator. And I have to tell everyone, you know, it's kind of like. Let me put it to you like this. You know, I admire them because you never give up when you're trying to climb a mountain and to do something. And to give you an idea, what I mean is that we played them 4 times. The first 3 times we played them, we beat them by 30 points, 40 points, and 30 points. Now we go and we lose by 2. So they never gave up. They kept on hammering and trying, and that's what Alabama and America is all about. We keep on trying till we get to that top. So hey, all I'm gonna say is that what you see now, you would have seen the like Wide World of Sports, the thrill of victory. Now you're looking at the agony of defeat. But I appreciate you, and I look forward to next year. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other motions or resolutions? All right, Senator Wagner.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
Have a report from the Committee on Rules.
Secretary read and receive the report from the Committee on Rules.
From the Committee on Rules, Special Order Calendar, Senate Resolution Number 25. Be it resolved by the Senate of the Legislature of Alabama that immediately upon the adoption of this resolution, the following business in the order set forth below shall be the special paramount order of business for the 7th legislative day, taking precedence over the regular order of business or any pending or unfinished business. On page 1 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 67 by Senators Jones and Chasteen regarding Veterans Affairs. On page 7, Senate Bill number 76 by Senators Weaver and Chambliss regarding jury duty. On page 12, Senate Bill number 64 by Senators Livingston and Kitchens regarding state waters. On page 16, Senate Bill number 104 by Senator Stewart and others regarding the composition of the Alabama Job Creation and Military Stability Commission. On page 14, Senate Bill number 95 by Senator Chasteen regarding the Alabama Municipal Electric Authority. On page 6, Senate Bill number 60 by Senator Albritton regarding the Corrections Institutions Finance Authority. On page 4, Senate Bill number 1 by Senator Gavan regarding public education employees. And on page 12, Senate Bill number 42 by Senator Melson regarding property.
Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, move adoption of the report from the Committee on Rules.
All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Conley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smithman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The special order calendar is adopted. Secretary, call the first bill.
Mr. President, I have a point of personal privilege.
Sure, you're recognized for that before we call the bill. Go ahead.
Now?
You're recognized, yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I'd like to have your attention. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I want to make you aware, Saturday, I guess early Saturday morning, there was a fire in Union Springs, Alabama. Union Springs Pharmacy was totally destroyed. It was in the same building there was a Mexican restaurant was also destroyed. Union Springs Pharmacy has been in the Stewart family for probably 75 plus years. David Stewart and his wife Beverly were the present owners and operators of the pharmacy, and his daddy ran the store for a number of years. But that drugstore was totally gutted. They lost everything they had in the store. And my heart just goes out for him because he not only was a pharmacist and drugstore owner, he was also a Baptist minister and served 2 churches. And we saw the news. My wife Rebecca and I went up, and we brought some water for the first responders. Then gave me a chance to talk to David, and I let him know there was anything that I could do to help him, that he could get his business reopened. I wanted to do it. And I guess after much prayer and thought with discussion with his family, he decided that he was not going to be able to reopen the store. And it's a real void in Union Springs. There's an independent drugstore there, and there's a chain drugstore there. But Union Springs Pharmacy provided their service to many, many of their clients or patients, customers. I really like patients or clients throughout the area. And my heart just bleeds for him because he was a dedicated person, a person of great faith. And I just like to make the members of the Senate aware of what occurred. And I think the suspicion is that it was caused by arson. And I saw pictures of the fire when it first got started, and it was just flaming all over the top of the roof. So and this individual was on the roof, and I think he caused it, and he has escaped from the community of Union Springs, and I'm just hoping and praying they're going to bring justice to what occurred. But I'd like, Mr. President, to have a moment of silent prayer for David Stewart and Beverly and members, employees of the Union Springs Pharmacy, and for the citizens of Union Springs, Alabama. Thank you, members of the Senate.
All right. Thank you, Senator Beasley. All right, Secretary, call the first bill.
On page 1 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 67 by Senator Jones and Chasteen.
Mr. President,
Senator Jones.
we have some things working on this bill, a lot of important feedback and amendments coming from some stakeholders and veterans groups around the state. We want to make sure we continue to hear them and incorporate that feedback as best we can into the legislation. So while we're working on this, I would ask that we carry this bill over to the call of the chair.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Senate Bill 67 is carried over the call of the chair. Before we move on to the next bill, I'd like to recognize some special guests in the gallery. When I call your name, if you could please stand. The guest of Senator Livingston, the Hardin family, if y'all could please stand. Welcome to the Alabama Senate.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of personal privilege.
You recognized?
I know this is a misery love company, but on Saturday night, early Sunday morning, my community, Hale County, was hit by a Category 3 tornado that was displaced, and actually 12 families got a total loss of their homes. 30 other families were affected, and it spanned about an 18-mile radius. So thank you, and I'll take that prayer that you gave up and ask the Lord to take it to those families also. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Senator Singleton. All right, Secretary, call the next bill.
Page 7 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 76 by Senators Weaver and Chambliss regarding jury duty. BR pending.
Senator Weaver.
So Senate Bill 76 offers nursing mothers an exemption from jury duty. It will provide them a solid and long-lasting protection that are carved into law. So we know there's been an administrative rule passed, but we know that administrative rules can be easily reversed, and changing the law requires us to get it through the legislature and have the governor to sign it, and we just feel like this gives them the protection that they need by bringing this bill today. So with that, I'd like to move that we adopt the BIR.
Would you like to use previous roll?
Previous roll, no objection.
You object? All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Cavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shellnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
All right, 31 ayes and no nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 7 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 76 by Senators Weaver and Chambliss regarding jury duty. Committee amendment pending.
So the committee amendment names this bill Parker's Law. Parker was the baby that was taken to jury duty that started the discussion related to this this day. So I'd like to make a motion that we pass the committee amendment using previous rule with no objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
31 ayes, 0 nays. The committee amendment's adopted. All right, Senator Weaver.
Okay, there is a second amendment, and I would like to thank the minority leader for working with me on this. We have a friendly bipartisan amendment that we believe makes this bill better. It takes out the part where the mother has to have the certification from a medical provider, and it basically says that she just has to have a statement that she is a nursing mother. So we think this is much friendlier for nursing mothers, that they're able to just make that statement instead of having the cost and the time required to have the attestation. So with that, I would like to move that we adopt this second amendment using previous rule with no objection.
Mr. President.
Hold on 1 second. All right, Secretary Reed received the amendment. Let me get the amendment read in real quick.
Amendment to Senate Bill 76 by Senator Weaver. Replace lines 75 through 79 on page 3 with the following statement that she is a nursing mother.
All right.
Mr. President.
Yeah.
I just want to thank the, let me see this. Yes. Okay, I don't have a problem with that.
If that's your amendment.
Okay, right. Mr. President, I want to thank the sponsor for working with us on this. I think that this opens up the door and leaves judges with the discretion that they already have, along with the ability to have that without mothers having to go back to a doctor. And sometimes when they have to go back to the doctor, they got to pay just to get that permission statement or pay a copay to say that they saw it, and to put a mother through that, I think it was just a little bit tedious to do that when it could be something as simple as seeing you with the baby and giving you that permission to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Smitherman.
Could you talk just for a few more minutes? I want to ask him something. Sure. It's related to the bill. I just want to ask him something. So if you, without moving it, could you just talk for me?
Senator Smitherman, are you fine with us adopting this amendment, or no?
I'm fine with it.
With the amendment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so for the purpose of that, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the second amendment using previous rule with no objection.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
31 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Weaver amendment's adopted. All right, Senator Weaver, now we need to, you can talk until you're ready. All right.
Perfect. So again, this bill offers nursing mothers an exemption from jury duty. And again, we know that there has been an administrative rule that can be easily reversed with the stroke of a pen. And as you all know, that changing a law requires the support of the House and the Senate and the governor. So we feel that this brings a stronger support for our nursing mothers here. You know, they already face a very unique set of stresses in their daily lives, and being called for jury duty should not be one of them. So, unsolicited, I have received probably almost 40 comments from young mothers across the state of Alabama who were telling us about similar situations that they had been in related to being a nursing mother and being called for jury duty. And again, we didn't solicit these. These are ones that just came in from different avenues after we said that we were going to work on this issue. I know that it's something that, even though it happened in Jefferson County, it's something that caught the eye of many Alabamians across the state. And here in the Senate, we are committed to protecting Alabama families and Alabama values. And we're going to do everything we can to protect these young mothers and the challenges that they face. So again, here in the Senate, we're committed to protecting Alabama families and Alabama values. I know that this is something that's important to many of us across the state. I know I've said it many times, we're committed to protecting Alabama families and Alabama values. And, you know, as a mother myself, I certainly have the greatest respect for women who are in this situation. And it's hard enough to be a young mother and to care for your family and want to care for your state through civic duty as well. But it's certainly not something that you should have to deal with at the same time. So again, the bill just does a couple of things that are very, very simple. It says that a mother can bring an excuse, and with the amendment that we just adopted, it doesn't have to be an excuse that came from a medical provider. We started off talking about that and thought that, you know, maybe they should bring a excuse from a healthcare provider, which would have been a physician or a lactation consultant, a certified nurse midwife, or a pediatrician. But after looking at that and having those discussions, we realized it's much friendlier for the mother just to be able to make that comment herself.
Mr. President, I'll be recognized.
You're recognized.
And I know the sponsor that brought this bill, it's a very unfortunate set of circumstances that this bill should never have been brought, because a judge already has discretion, and we should not have to be here wasting our time doing this. And I thank Senator Weaver for what she's done, because no mother should be put through this and have to deal with this for somebody not using discretion. If you can't look up and see somebody coming in with kids and give a little discretion there, then you don't need to be on the bench. And I hate to say that, but that's just the reality of it. And I know Senator Weaver's worked hard with AOC and all parties, and I appreciate the hard work she's put into it. And I know the amendment, she's worked with Senator Singleton on the amendment that she's got. And if we can't support our parents that are in here, then who can we support? I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing. So, and I know she's working hard over there trying to figure out if there's going to be another amendment or what's going on this. But I just like to get this voted on, get it out of the Senate, get it to the House, and let's protect the mothers so they can raise their children and do what we hope they're all doing, like our parents did. So, and I think I'd like to turn it over to Senator Kelly. He's in line to. Thank you.
Senator Bell, appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Yes, Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd echo what Senator Bell said. You know, there's a lot of things that come into this type of situation when you have a mother that's called to jury duty and you have a child that's still in the nursing position. And it also creates a situation that child being fed on time. So I would say that that is a natural course of life, and that any reasonable person could see that and know that that's something that there need to be allowances to. We have to look out for the welfare of the children, and so many times we get caught up in the position of formalities without really taking a look at unintended consequences. And I'm sure a judge probably didn't realize the unintended consequence of what was being caused by some of those decisions. And you know, I can remember when I was a child and my mother nursed me. I don't exactly remember that point, but you know, it was something that I really needed at the time, provided a lot of healthy issues with me, and I appreciated her going that extra mile for me. And so, you know, having a mother that is willing to do that for you and provide that natural childbirth experience and the nursing experience raises a healthier child. Thank you, Mr. President.
That, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I think we've come to a resolution that we're going
Okay.
to continue to work on, but for the purpose of this, I'd like to make the motion for final passage as amended.
Using previous role?
Previous role, no objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
31 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 76 passes. Thanks, Senator Weaver. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 12 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 64 by Senators Livingston and Kitchens regarding state waters. BIR pending.
Senator Livingston.
Mr. President, I'd use the BIR using previous role with no objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
31 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 12 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 64 by Senators Livingston and Kitchens regarding state waters. Committee amendment pending.
Mr. President, I move we adopt the committee amendment using previous role without objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
31 ayes, 0 nays. The committee amendment's adopted. All right, Senator Livingston.
Mr. President, this is a bill that deals with aquatic weeds, and we have an excess number of those on the Gunnersville impoundment of the Tennessee River. It simply requires that we have a number of folks that have become very entrepreneurial and have developed weed cutting devices, yet they leave it in the water. This would require them to harvest it and take it out of the water. Pretty simple bill. And if no questions, it came through the Ag Committee last week, and we were proud that ADEM and the Department of Conservation worked with us to put this in place. So if there's no questions, I move for final passage using previous rule without objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President.
31 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 64 passes. Secretary, call next bill.
On page 16 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 104 by Senator Stewart and others regarding the Job Creation and Military Stability Commission. BR pending.
Senator Stewart.
Mr. President, I move to adopt the BIR using previous role without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 16 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 104 by Senator Stewart and others regarding military affairs.
Senator Stewart.
So thank you for the recognition, Mr. President. What this bill does, it just updates the composition of the Alabama Job Creation and Military Stability Commission. It adds and ensures that the chair of military affairs in both the House and the Senate are added. So with that, I move for final passage using previous role without objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 104 passes. Thank you, Senator Stewart. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 14 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 95 by Senator Chasteen regarding the Municipal Electric Authority. BIR pending.
Mr. President.
Senator Chasteen.
Thank you for the recognition. I'd like to pass the BIR using the previous roll without objection, please.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 14 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 95 by Senator Chasteen regarding the Alabama Municipal Electric Authority. Committee amendment pending.
Members, last year the legislature passed a bill by Senator Gudger allowing the gas districts to increase their compensation for the board members from $1,750 for each member and $2,000 for the chair. Senate bill does exactly the same thing for the Alabama Municipal Electric Authority Board. So I have some committee amendments.
All right, you going to move for adoption?
Let's move to adopt. Yes.
Use previous roll.
Previous roll.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The committee amendment's adopted.
With that being said, Mr. President, I move for final passage using the previous roll without objection, as amended.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 95 passes. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 6 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 60 by Senator Albritton regarding the Alabama Corrections Institution Finance Authority. BIR pending.
Mr. President.
Senator Albritton.
Move for passage of the BIR using previous roll without objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 6 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 60 by Senator Albritton regarding the Alabama Correction Institutions Finance Authority.
Mr. President.
Senator Albritton.
Thank you for the recognition. This particular bill is one dealing with our previously adopted prison construction, and I think I have a couple of questions by my colleague across the way that I'd allow for some questions.
Mr. President?
All right, Senator Singleton.
Yeah. I thank you for bringing this bill. You know, I sit on the SIPA board and understand the process by which you're going through, and with us trying to deal with these two mega projects that we're out here trying to do. We saw a series of where inflation hit the bond market that caused us to lose some money on some of our series back in the summer, and we weren't able to sell the number of series that we needed to for the capacity that we needed. And I think there was a question that came up from my side of the aisle in our caucus meeting today. Will this capacity that you're asking for us now, will it hurt the bond rating of the state? And if so, how would that happen?
That's a good question, and I appreciate Senator bringing that forward. To get to that, let me say that first off, what we have accomplished in Alabama has been tremendous in how we have handled our finances in the last while. We have, if you'll recall, we have repaid the ATF off. You remember when we borrowed this, it was and we started paying back, and we paid back every year. And then because of the influx of revenue that we had, we were able to take and pay that off in one lump sum. That was about 2 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, I think it was. We paid that off completely. So we now have more in the ATF than we've ever had before. The second thing is we've also taken bonds that were getting close to being resolved, and we've paid those off in total also. Couple that with the point of how we have progressed financially in Alabama and how we handle things. Our credit rating has improved substantially on the national and international market. We have made huge improvements in our standings in many of these ways. I don't know what the ratings are and how they go, but I'm told that we're on the verge of moving and improving up. So our capacity is well within the means of being able to meet this demand. This will not be stretching our capacity or placing anyone in jeopardy of losing or not being able to sustain itself. So I don't believe, and I've checked with the Secretary of Treasury on this, I've checked with the Finance Director, and also with LSA on this matter to make sure that we're first doing no harm. But we are doing things by putting this in. What we're doing is we're being able to meet the demands of what we've already committed to, the 2 prisons. Keep in mind, you know, inflation has hit us, and these things, the cost on this have gone way up, just like everything else has. But what we've been able to do in Alabama, even with this additional borrowing, we will have paid in our borrowing, if we borrow all of it, have paid for 1 prison with borrowed money, and we will have paid cash for another. Now, we had no idea we were going to be able to do that back in 21 when we passed this bill. We thought we were going to have $785 million, and we were concerned about that. My point is, financially, we're capable and able to handle this. It's going to allow us to continue with the construction that's ongoing without stopping and without let up, so that we don't have a different, having to go through different other engineering problems or stopping of workforce. We can move smoothly from one to the other and get to a finished point. So that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Well, you know, we're saying that we want to have the capacity to be able to do this bonding capacity, and we may not need it. Well, my experience around here may not never come. It always, we find a way to need it. And we always find a way to spend it all, you know, to do something with it.
But you and I are on that board.
Yes.
So I think we'd be able to have a means of watching and controlling that.
Yes. Well, the other side to that is that because of where we are in our capacity inside of our facility, we know that we also, along with passing these bills, pass a bill also to do a plan B, as I will call it, the renovation projects. We had to close down some projects, and then we had some projects that was going to be renovated. Can some of this money move forward for that renovation? If we have that capacity of it left, can we utilize it for that renovation at that time?
To answer your question directly, yes.
Okay.
In the language of the bill, in the original bill, it allows for renovations and other things. And keep in mind, this is not for any additional beds. This is for replacement
Understand.
beds. Okay? So we're going to be able to move forward if we have that borrowing in that capacity. We'll be able to move forward with the others if need be.
Okay. So this is what, $500 million?
$500 million, yes, sir.
Okay, on this bond.
Sounds better that way.
I got you. Sound better that way, $500 million
Yes.
than $500 million.
1995.
I got you. Okay. I don't have a problem with this, because it's not like we're just taking the money and we'll say that we want to get this out to go use it. It's the now and looking forward, and the ability for us to be able to pay off and cash and don't have that debt left after we finish is going to be tremendous. It will be just, we'll just have maintenance after that.
Exactly.
That point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing about this is this doesn't give us a time frame. It doesn't restrict us to a time frame of taking this to market any time. Right now, the market is not the best with interest rates like they are and other matters that are out there. But with this capacity, if we pass this and give that capacity to this body, when we are needing it, when we get to it, because remember, we've got money now to finish up Elmore. We also have money enough to get started with and get about half of the Escambia County moving along. With this capacity available and with the time frame it's going to take to get there, the markets will change, and we hope at that point we'll have improved, or at some point we can then make the judgment when the market is best to use this capacity that we're setting aside with this bill and be able to continue on smoothly without interruption, without stoppage of work, without pipelines, supply pipelines getting in troubles and inflation. The longer we wait, the more inflation affects us.
So in this process, when you sit down with all of the powers to be to look at this process and how we're going, did anybody put in the scenario of tariffs and how it could hurt this whole process and running up inflation and prices on that? Did anybody think about how the tariff situation, if there's a tariff on steel, how would the cost and affect how it's going to move forward and move up?
It's too early, I think, to know how that's going to affect. We're speaking theoretics of what tariffs may or may not do. We know one thing about tariffs right now: they're going to be implemented. And, okay,
they will be around for a while.
Know, all right. Now the question is, how will that affect us and afflict us, and how much will they be? That's running wild right now as to how we're going to wind up with those matters. But I can tell you this: time is not on our side when it comes to large construction projects. So the sooner we move forward and get this in the ground and moving along, the better off we will be. And I don't know, my opinion is worth anybody else's is on tariffs. I think it's going to probably fall out in a way that has little effect. The inflation that we've been suffering from for years continues to stick with us. We still got to deal with that. And who knows, maybe we should do something to reduce the cost of eggs. I saw a cartoon about someone was presenting a wedding ring, and instead of a diamond, it had an egg on the.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We're headed towards some times that are a little bit rocky, I think, financially. But anything we can do, which this bill is a part of this, to get ourselves prepared and set to move when we can is important.
I got 6 laying hens coming next week. I do.
Wonderful.
Yep. Yeah. I used to have 40 till the foxes started eating them up.
Yes, sir.
Fox and the possum.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll get in your chicken yard to eat up all of you.
I understand that. I've caught several possums in the chicken house before.
Yeah. So, but you basically just about need your laying hen in your yard to keep up with the eggs.
That is a fact. Do you do brown eggs or white eggs?
Well, brown, yeah. Most of them.
I'm not particular. The variety is the best.
Well, I mean, they'll come brown or white. I used to have these chickens they would lay Easter egg. They would come out different colors.
Yes, I
Green,
saw those.
Little yellow ones. Mm-hmm. They were the Easter egg chicken.
Yep.
They would grow different. They would lay different color eggs. It's amazing, isn't it?
It is. It is. And what's interesting is that the color eggs has nothing to do with the chicken, with the outward appearance of the chicken. I don't know.
I don't know how that works either, but at the end of the day, the yolk was the same.
Yeah, that is correct. And that's true whether it's a chicken egg or a goose egg.
Yeah.
Right? The egg looks the same.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same. I mean,
the size is a little different.
They didn't eat no different than me,
Yeah, that's true.
As one of my good deceased legislative friend, Alvin Holmes, used to say, "What's wrong with the eggs we got?"
How did we get off on that topic?
I don't know, man. Would you would think the price of eggs was up so high? We were talking about tariffs. You talk about bringing down the price of eggs, and
maybe there's a relationship there. We'll call it so.
Well, I mean, they just as high as a mortgage these days now.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Have you? When was the last time you went out to see the Elmore facility?
I haven't been out there since the summer.
Is that right?
No, I went out there for a meeting with the contractors. It was probably August sometime. That's the last time I was out there.
I think it'd be a good thing if within the next week or so you and I had took a trip out there. I hope DOC is listening.
I'm okay with that.
And would be willing to allow us to go out there and see how far advanced we are.
Yeah.
Out there, because I know that they're making huge progress out there. Things are going vertical. You know, they're building the cells there on site, pouring the concrete and everything there, and then they're moving them to the site, to the actual place and placing them there. But I think it's time for us to go back out there and see. It's been about a year since I was out there.
Have they finished? I know the last time I was out there, they were constructing the water tower.
They should have been. I think it's complete, but you know, when I was out there, it was in the process.
Yeah.
So it should be completed at this point, and I think the whole thing is scheduled for opening, I guess, about this time next year.
Okay.
All right. So spring of '26 is when they should open. So then we hope. With everything going like it is, we should be able to start, at least with the contracting and other things, with the Escambia facility, sometime maybe this summer, for maybe some dirt work and such. We're trying to work now, as I understand it, for contracts along that line now.
Well, you know, it's amazing, and for any member here who has not gone out there and don't understand the brevity of that the actual size of that facility. When you think about it, you just think about, okay, this is a building with 4,000 beds in it, but you're talking about a campus. You're almost talking about another little small city, you know, with the number of buildings that this campus will encompass on that property. And the capacity in which it could hold, I mean, it's huge. It would, and the way that it is set up, you can be in cell block D over here in this building, somebody can be over here in A, and the way it's set up, you would never see them in 10 years if you don't ever come over here and walk around the way the lockup situation is here.
That's correct. It provides a great deal more safety for the correction officers, the employees that's there, and also for the inmates.
Yes.
A great deal more control and safety that's there. The other, and you're right, I mean, there's, I would suggest that there's several county seats in our state that has less population than one of these facilities.
Without a doubt.
And not only that, but this facility, this small town that's there.
It's a little small town.
It's going to have a hospital. It's going to have mental health facilities. It's going to have school and training there. Everything, you've got to feed them. Everything will be on that site.
Yeah.
It is a city.
It is. It's going to be, it's a huge campus. It really is.
200 acres, I think it is, 225 acres, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's spread apart. And also, if you notice, you know, I know at Fountain, at several other older facilities where the fences are around, there's a problem with contraband being brought and driven and just tossed over, or being used with drones to come over the fence to drop contraband inside the fence. These new facilities are designed and set up to prevent that. So that is physically impossible to do.
So we know when we started hearing that going in, we know it got to be human trafficking. Somebody got to be taking it in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the controls that's there will be also coming along that will give greater surveillance and controls over what's being brought in. These will be huge improvements in the Department of Corrections for the state of Alabama, and a benefit to the people that's there and to those of us that we're trying to protect the public.
Okay. I think Mr. President wanted to announce someone.
Oh, all right.
Would you gentlemen, Senators, excuse me just for a minute and allow me
Certainly.
to announce some of our guests? We have in our gallery the members of the board of the Mobile Airport Authority. Would you all stand? We can recognize you if you're up there. And also we want to recognize the members of the Mobile County Legislative Delegation. You all stand up also.
The guest of the Mobile Legislative.
Oh, they're your guests.
Yeah.
They're guests of the Mobile delegation.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad to have you all, and please come back to see us again. Thank you all very much. Senators, you all now may resume your
Thank you, Mr. President.
So we've talked about the prisons, where we are, how far we're going along this line and such. We've talked about our chickens. And how that goes along. What other good topic do you think we need to discuss?
Talked about tariffs.
Say again?
As we talked about tariffs.
Yes, we did. We did. And we've talked about what else have we discussed that's of so little interest that anyone's listening to me right now?
Well, again, I think we're doing what it takes for us to get in position to do what we need to do, because building prisons is not sexy. It's not something that, you just want to say that you're out here doing. I know for me, it's, to say that we're building to lock and incarcerate people up. I just hope that once we do get them up, that when we bring in, we do something to really start to rehabilitating people. Because if we're gonna have all this capacity to be able to separate folks, put them in different cells, slow down on some of the crime that's inside of our facility, we could definitely work on some of those other things to try to help actually rehabilitate people before they come back out on our streets again.
I agree.
And some of the problems that we have now is because you just don't have the room to do so, or to isolate someone if they are, because if someone goes in today and assaults someone else, it's almost like you're just putting them right back in the general population, because in some of these facilities you don't have a lockdown space to put them in.
That's one thing that we've done, though, is coming to line with Ingram State. Ingram State is moving forward, and they will have a campus on both of these new facilities.
Yes.
And they have the means to begin that training and such. One of the other problems we have with the prisons is hiring people, bringing people in to be hired. These facilities will be safer so that when you go into work, you'll be able to go home.
Right.
We've had too much, there's too much danger inside the general population of the older facilities. This will be a huge step up for that. The thing also that comes into play that I think needs to be made mention of here is when we've come under a great deal of criticism because of the cost, the estimated cost of these when they were brought out. They were of a level that we looked at paying for $785 for 2 prisons. Mm-hmm. Now only one is $1.086 billion. And that has caused a lot of concern. However, when we look at other events that have occurred in the United States, other states have taken over and began to build prisons, and the federals have also. And when they started, they had the same problems. They had the exact same difficulties. The cost overruns were huge. Now, part of that was because of the inflation, the COVID matters, the supply problems, all of that came into play too. But the still matter came in that building these things are very expensive. They're very meticulous. And when you see the play, and I'll use one that comes to mind, those 2 or 3 of them, but one came in was Utah, where they took it, they moved it from one area out on the Salt Flats, and another large facility, very similar to what ours are looking at, 3,000 to 4,000 inmates, and they had the same cost overruns, the same percentage of difficulties that we've had. And so we've gone through that same process. We hadn't built a prison in almost 50 years. And I can tell you, and I hope when we get out to Elmore and see that facility, we'll be able to determine that we know what we're doing now. The teams that have been put together there, the oversight that's there, are of a quality that has been impressive. When you go out there and you talk to the people that's looking at it, they know what's happening, they know who's doing what, they know who's on site, they know what's coming up. They have a good handle on this stuff. You talk to the legal teams that's over there doing this. They know the language that they're dealing with and the oversights that's there, the meticulousness and care that's going on there. From my observations and questions are very professional and is being done correctly. I think we know what we're doing. And I think that as we move forward on this and go finish up in Elmore and move on to the other, I think it's going to be a good thing for the state of Alabama and lead us into an area where we can actually learn and show others what and how to do. You know, when we first started arguing about this, we were talking about finding new sites and putting them on, purchasing properties and the cost of that and everything. We went through all that. We're not doing that. We're putting it on the property that we already own.
The best thing to happen for us.
Exactly.
Saved us a whole lot of money.
Exactly, and then we can put it in a place where we know and everything. We already have the facilities there.
Got utilities already there. That saved us a bunch of money without having to run new utilities, streets, and all of that stuff, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now we're having to increase the capacities of them, such as in Elmore, where we there's others that's there, but we got to have the new facilities there. We still got to increase that capacity to meet that 4,000 man facility, but we're doing that. It's being done in a very, very well, and actually in no timeline is a problem.
So I think, you know.
So anyway, what we're looking at on this is moving, if we can get this bill done and passed, and then that will be able to move forward, continue on, finish up Elmore, begin and smoothly run on into the Escambia, and get the Escambia completed from there without interruption and without delays and without cost or other issues that's coming up. So all of this leads into the means of saving money, meeting the obligations that we've already met, and being able to do it in a timely fashion so that we can take advantage of markets and items that are out there as they develop. We've talked about tariffs, how that may affect and afflict us. We don't know that yet. But once we get this accomplished, we'll be able to gauge and plan and schedule around those items that are needful so that we can make it to the best benefit of the state of Alabama. So that's kind of where we're headed on that.
Well, I commend you for the job that you're doing on this, and I guess what the undercurrent that we also have to also understand that what we're swimming up against is the federal government telling us basically where we are, and it's not like this is just a hobby for us that we just want to build some prison. This is a cute thing to do. I mean, we're here because we have a target on us, And so we're seeing in states like California and the Carolinas where the feds has gone in and taken over those prisons, that those repairs in or new buildings has gone up exponentially with them, because the feds are just writing the check. They don't, out of your account.
Out of my account, yeah.
Out of your
exactly.
account, not their account, but out of your account. And they're not talking about trying to cut this piece of steel and this weight or this weight of wire. They put in the heaviest wires as they possibly can to make sure that they get the best product that they can. While we still have that choice of being able to do cost savings and things that we need to do, we're still under that scope that we got to meet to make sure that we meet the mandates of this lawsuit that we're under also.
You know what one of the greatest savings we'll have when we get these two prisons built? You know what we hope will be the biggest cash savings with this completion? Lawyer fees.
Wow.
Lawyer fees. We are defending ourselves, the state, on so many, Senator Lawyer back there takes offense. Anyway, we have so many legal battles going on dealing with DOC that while these two facilities will not completely address all of those, they will make a huge step in being able to correct those ills that we have, and also moving into an area so that we can get rid of that troublesome problem like you've mentioned on the federal level.
Well, I mean, but then on the other hand of that, we just have some real inhumane facilities that just really not fit for human capacity. People just be living in.
Well, they weren't built for prisons anyway. That's not what they originally were done for.
Right.
Purposed for.
So
they're warehouses.
Yeah, they're warehouses. And so we've had sewer drainage problems in the middle of the night.
Yep.
You know, we have asbestos problem with peeling paint and, you know, and people, you know, I'm surprised that we don't have a million lawsuits behind stuff like that, you know. So, but I think with what we're doing is, number one, is safety.
Correct.
Not only safe for the inmate, but safe for those people that we send in, those Alabamians that we send in there every day to do that job, which is not a sexy job, which is not something that you go and brag that this is your career about, that you got to stand up and watch criminals all night long. Got to be on your feet and be alert, you know, all day and all night, because you're having to watch people who just decided they want to be bad. And people who have done heinous crimes. So we just got to work through this and make sure that we're building it. And these are not extra beds. You know, I hear people out in the community all the time talking about, yeah, they just building up just to lock up all these people. Again, we ain't got no lock up all these people room. Even when you build this, you ain't got no lock up all these people room.
They will be full right away.
They will be full right away, and
Because
you still need some more room.
Exactly.
Still need more. Mm-hmm. Still need more.
So I think we've done our duty here as far as going along, and unless there's any further questions or discussion, Mr. President?
Yeah.
You ready? I would go ahead and move for third reading, final passage, using previous rule without objection.
Is there an objection to using previous roll? Seeing none, Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
Bill received a vote of 32 ayes and 0 nays, and for final passage. Good job, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Secretary, call the next
Thanks,
bill.
Senator.
Thank you.
On page 4 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 1 by Senator Gavan regarding public education employees, PR pending.
Senator, you recognize.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I see you're stuck up in the chair. I was counting on you being down here bragging about how great this bill is, and you've handcuffed yourself, Senator.
I knew it. So, hey, I'm gonna I'm gonna operate vicariously through you.
Okay, well, at this time, Mr. President, I would move the BIR using previous role without objection.
Is it any objection? Seeing
Mr.
none.
President, I would like to speak to the motion.
You recognize?
Yeah, thank you, sir. And I know we're in a holding pattern right here.
Correct.
This is not about a filibuster. I think this is a great bill. Let me help you brag about it, okay?
Thank you, Senator.
I think this is a great bill because I think it brought to our attention something that we all took for granted that was happening. And for years, we never knew because we just never heard the cry. Not that we wouldn't have fixed it before now, but we just never really heard the cry until now. And I'm glad that we are hearing it, and that these things like this, injuries on the job for a teacher and not being able to get compensated for it, or students might just haul off and hit a teacher at any moment, or I remember when I was in the 3rd grade. One of my classmates got mad with my pregnant teacher, and he hit her in the stomach with his fist, and they had to rush her to the hospital. We was in 3rd grade at that time. And so you fast forward to today, those kind of things happen. A mother need to be able to take off of work, need to know that she's compensated for it, and the ability to be able to come back to work when she feels that it's proper to come back to work and not having to rush back to work. So bills like this to deal with those unintended consequences that we definitely don't want to happen to our teachers that are out there. We want to protect them and make sure that they're safe, but yet and still make sure that when they are injured on the job, that they get the proper compensation for it. So thank you for bringing that bill.
Well, thank you, Senator. Yeah, so many people that I have talked to did not realize that our teachers and lunchroom workers and maintenance staff, coaches, so forth, that they did not have workers' compensation insurance. People just assume that that people working in the school system have workers' compensation insurance, and it's one of the good things is that we don't have injuries at the same level, right? But there are people that have to deal with some special ed students that are tough to control, and they can sometimes unintentionally hurt people.
Yes.
And sometimes intentionally.
Yes.
And we have no mechanism other than going to the Board of Adjustments, which apparently is universally recognized as an unacceptable way. There's too many things that are not getting paid. There's too many delays. There's too much hassle in the process. We have a process for our state employees, and normally, candidly frustrating to me sometimes is that every time we've got it's like a tit for tat for state employees versus education employees, and sometimes that doesn't always work so well. But in this situation, we have something for our state employees if they're injured on the job, but we do not have it for our education employees. And so this is a great opportunity to remedy that situation. And, we call this the Mary Ann Leonard Educators on the Job Injury Act. And I don't remember if you were at the hearing where she spoke. I was actually in the House hearing and the Senate hearing. It was very emotional when she explained the injury that she had, because she was making an effort to go and try to keep a student from hurting himself or herself, and she ended up colliding with a metal post or something like that on the playground, and is permanently totally disabled, and basically, didn't get much more than a whole handful of gratitude from the state of Alabama. And this is something we need to rectify and come up with a measurement. Now, for those that have more than 10 years in the system, it's not such an egregious situation. But those like Ms. Leonard that had less than 10 years in the system can't retire early. And they don't have a measure to compensate them for that injury. And I think that this is a great opportunity for us to do that. By the way, we got a tremendous amount of cooperation from the PHIP board, because not all these, and there are some distinctions in this bill between PHIP covered employees and non-PHIP covered employees, because they're not, not everybody that works in the system is covered by PHIP. But PHIP's going to pick up the the medical bills for the members that are covered by it. And so that's something that won't have to come out of this fund. And then the local funding is already covered under existing law. I think it's like 90 days, basically short-term disability. The local boards will continue to cover that, but the local boards will not have to cover the cost of this. And I do have a commitment, at least from Senator Orr, to put that in the budget to cover us for this year to start up.
So I guess one of the bigger questions is, will we fully fund PHIP?
Well, I think we're going to have to, but it's that's something that one of the issues we've got with PHIP, as you know, unfortunately, is the way that through a change of the federal government, it's going to be a costlier ticket item for us this year. I don't know all the particulars of that situation, but it's going to be a bigger price tag for the state of Alabama this year.
Well, I guess I need to get down to the bottom and see why is that soaring up, from the feds that's going to push it out like that, because we definitely need to, teachers already don't get paid that much money. And the benefits is one of the bigger pieces of the package while they teach. And here in Alabama, like that misnomer that, hey, they got it made, teachers. Because some people assume that because they're a teacher, they got good insurance, they probably already had, workman's comp and all of that. We assume that, and it's not there. And so we just need to make sure that the price is not skyrocketing on them for their health insurance, which is based on where they're making their money. We're going to lose a lot of teachers because then they're going to be paying more for health insurance and trying to pay to teach than it is to get paid teaching.
Well, Senator, one of the things that I heard is, I'm sure you probably had the opportunity to meet with some local educators in your district, as I and my colleagues did in North Alabama, and that's one of I'd say it was one of the common requests that was made to us, was to please to protect them on that insurance aspect. Because of things that we talked about there's some of them could go make more money somewhere else.
Right.
And so we've got to have a benefits package and a lifestyle package that makes them want to stay in this arena and makes new people want to come into it, like my daughter. And I think there is a calling there, but calling's going to go so far. And, one of the things I heard you commenting, I believe, earlier, literally the price of eggs came up at the table.
Yes.
And the cost that at the grocery store that people are having to pay. And so the pressure of, if we then go in and make them pay more for their insurance, and that's going to put that much more pressure on them. And that's just kitchen table economics.
Yes. It is, and I've been hearing that. I heard from a retired teacher who retired early on, because of her age. Teachers weren't making that much money. I think a retirement, let's just say, anywhere between $800 and $1,000 a month. And out of that, if they got to pay more money on their PHIP, for their insurance, it's really going to hurt a family like that. For someone who worked in the system those years, they weren't making that much money to start with for their retirement to be so high. And now, one of the better things was that they were getting a good benefit package, and now the benefit package has to go up, then it takes away from their cost of living, which is going to become a problem for them. So we just got to work through this thing and try to make sure that we can hold down this inflation as much as we possibly can, and make sure that our people are made whole, as whole as we possibly can get. Because I don't know what it costs to totally, fully fund PHIP. And I guess my chairman would tell me what that would cost. How do we get there? How do we make it work? We need to try to find that way to do that,
That's true. And they're going to, they're always request of the education budget, and I know I'm making a request indirectly through pursuing this bill, but I do think that's the right thing to do for our state. We are going to have to make this all balance out. we will need some upfront costs to get this thing started. And then the good news is, again, when we compare it to the state health employees, and I'm not an actuary, and I'm just kind of going on common sense, but the dangers of being a corrections officer or a ALDOT employee, those are dangerous jobs, and I would think they would have a higher experience.
Senators, the time is up on the BIR.
Okay. So at this time, I would move adoption of the BIR using previous roll without objection.
Seeing no objection, with the dead call a short roll.
Strawbritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes and 0 nays. The BIR is passed. What you call the bill?
On page 4 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 1 by Senator Gavan regarding public education employees.
Senator Gavan, you recognize.
Mr. President, I have an amendment.
Would the desk receive it and read the amendment?
Replace lines 50, amendment to Senate Bill 1 by Senator Gavan. Replace lines 50 through 51 on page 2 with the following. Replace line 73 on page 3 with the following. Replace lines 190 on page 7 with the following. Replace line 199 on page 8 with the following. Replace line 266 on page 10 with the following. Replace line 277 on page 10 with the following. Replace line 408 on page 15 with the following. Replace lines 411 through 413 on page 15 with the following. Replace line 415 on page 15 with the following. Replace lines 445 through 446 on page 16 with the following. Replace lines 48 through 49 on page 18 with the following. Replace line 507 on page 19 with the following. Replace line 510 on page 19 with the following. Replace line 518 on page 19 with the following. Replace lines 555 through 556 on page 20 with the following.
Senator Gavan, you recognize.
Thank you, Senator. You would have had an hour on this, Senator. If I may, ladies and gentlemen, I'll go over the amendments on this. The First Amendment, I read this 3 times, and at least 3 times, and I'm like, why in the world? This is word for word what I've got there. Apparently, there's a computer glitch in there, and that's why this is in there. So the First Amendment is no change in words. The second one, right now there is I think it was intended that this act not cover a mental disorder or mental injury that has neither been produced nor proximately caused by some physical injury to the body. So in other words, if you get injured and you have a mental issue that comes out of that, it would be covered, but not just standing alone. And I think that, I don't know if that's to make it consistent with, I do not do workers' compensation coverage. I don't know if that's to make it consistent with our regular workers' comp or with the state employees situation, but that's something I think that is a check that our school boards would be in favor of. Then the next amendment is just clarifying that there's no double dipping, that if something's paid for by the PHIP, they're not going to be able to come back in and get a recovery out of this fund. So we are trying to protect the fund and preserve it because of those pressures we do have on the budget. Then we've got some, the next amendment is that we are specifying that when a notice is given to the injured worker from the school administration, that they are advised of specifically their rights under the Mary Ann Leonard Educators on the Job Injury Act. Then we move on to, it's another amendment that's basically fitting in with the statute that deals with that mental disorder or mental injury, just making it consistent within the law. The next section that we migrate into just allows, specifically clarifies that there can be lump sum settlements to go ahead and resolve these payments, and that's up to the board and to the employee to negotiate, as well as settlement closing out some or all benefits. For instance, I hear this phrase, close out the medicals. Apparently that's a big thing, is that medicals can roll on forever, and so that's something that can be negotiated. The next one is just a little technical thing because it's adding some other language and it's just changing into a B1 instead of a B. And then we've got a clarification that just on the PHIP payments, because PHIP is going to continue to pay the physicians, and so they will just clarification there. Then we move on to clarifying that the employees shall be paid by PHIP for the medical bills that are covered by PHIP in accordance with the PHIP fee schedule. PHIP's already got a fee schedule about what they're going to pay for certain things. PHIP's the ones paying the bill, so why should there be two different schedules? We're going to operate on one schedule for the injuries. And also, I think that clarifies that it's not coming from the fund, it is coming from PHIP. The next thing we would move to days, I think I mentioned this earlier, they would not be waiving the 90-day benefits that they would get from the local school boards for that, basically what I'm calling, temporary disability. They would still be entitled, the employees would still be entitled to that. The next provision that just expounds upon what we're talking about in the language in terms of subrogation. It's not, I don't know that, other than clarifying, I don't know that it's a substantive change. Then on page 4 of the amendment, this was a big catch caught by, I believe, the attorney in Huntsville, that the current bill says that the statute of limitations would be after medicals close out. Medicals may never close out. So this could go on for ages. And so this clarifies it would be, it takes out that provision, and it says that it would begin to run, I believe it's a year from the date of the last temporary total disability payment. So it puts a time frame on this and does not keep it going on forever and for somebody having to make a claim. The next several sections, the way this is set up is you can either go, of course you could still go in front of the Board of Adjustment. I don't know why you'd want to, but you could go in front of a hearing officer. And so we have some parameters set up for a hearing officer, and think, administrative law judge in that regard. And so the administrative law judge needs some discretion as far as to how to deal with discovery in this. The way it was worded, I believe it would possibly tie a circuit judge's hands if the case was appealed to circuit court. And we don't want to tie the rules of civil procedure already allow for what a circuit judge is going to do. So we don't want to tie the circuit judge's hands. So we're tweaking this language to deal with just the hearing officer or the administrative law judge that would be handling these. And then finally, what we have is at the end of page 4 is a savings clause. And that just simply is something we have in a lot of commercial contracts. Basically, if anything in this act is not lawful, basically you don't throw the whole the whole act out. You just would the judge would just throw out the offensive provision, so to speak, and so the rest of the act would be left intact, and that's sort of a standard tact, and I think that's something we've got in the workers' compensation law. So that is an explanation of the amendment. I'll be glad to discuss any questions anyone may have.
So, Mr. President, so on the 90 days, so now the teacher or the person would not lose their 90 days that they already have. They don't
Correct.
have to
We're
use-
preserving that. That was dealt with in
Preserving
the
the 90
amendment.
right.
I
Preserving-
think that was an unintended consequence. As Mr. President would say, sometimes these have wings, and Wing was flipping somebody there. You think I don't listen to you?
Somebody be listening.
I'm over there listening. So this was one of those unintended consequences that we caught and cleaned up in the amendment.
That's good. Because I was wondering how was that going to work out in the bill, and I'm glad you was able to catch that. And so, but the other thing on the statute of limitation, you're reining the statute of limitation in,
Correct.
instead of having it wide open based on just the injury and the medicals as long as they run.
I think that was an oversight in the drafting of the original bill, and that certainly needed to be cleaned up.
All right. And I heard you say some of it was just other technical cleanup stuff, right?
Correct.
Okay. I mean, I think it's a great bill. I have nothing against this bill. I just think that we need to go and get across to the governor's desk and get it signed so people can. When does it become in effect?
Let me look at that. This act shall become effective immediately.
Upon the signing of the governor.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, there may be a delayed, and I think the reasoning for that is we've got to go ahead and get the board set up.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to get those things done. I think the payments are probably, and I don't know where it's buried in the bill, Senator, but I think that probably starts later. It may not start till next fiscal year.
I got you.
But I appreciate the support. And last year, I had so many co-sponsors of this bill. It was bipartisan. The senator from Montgomery came up and asking to co-sign, and I told him it was apologize, but once it's filed, and I really wanted that SB1 status, so I wasn't able to get co-sponsors and grab that SB1 status, and so I appreciate all the support and the compliments that have come up in the education budget. Appreciate the support I have from Chairman Orr in funding this and fighting for that. And the Speaker has been a great proponent of this. And so I look forward with working with members of the House. If we're fortunate enough to pass this, I think we will, and get this passed downstairs.
Okay. Wow, there was something that just came in my mind. We was talking about, the mental capacity. So if a person, I heard you talk about that, so they just can't make a claim for something that has to do with their mental capacity.
So I'm giving a hypothetical here.
Please help me understand.
Let's say whether it's a parent that was threatening, but no physical damage was done, whether it was a stressful situation, maybe observing a child get hurt or something like that, or observing children fight. And that was, somebody was maybe claiming post-traumatic stress disorder or something. Something that was triggered by the events, because as I understand it, one of the things that they're saying is that it's not necessarily, that you have to be in combat to come up with something like that, or on a police situation, it can be stress triggered. And so they wouldn't be able to claim that unless there was a corresponding physical injury. But let's say somebody was, and there have been situations where they've been beaten by parents that lost their cool and whatnot, and they're physically are injured and then emotional distress comes from that, that would be covered if there's a bodily injury.
So if I'm in my classroom and little Bobby and his friends come and
watch out for little Bobby,
jump on me because they're mad with me because of something, and I'm afraid to come back into that school or to deal with those kids for a while, in as much as my injury may not be sustained that much, but in terms of my mental capacity, you're telling me with that I could not.
Unless there's physical injury.
If it was a physical injury along with it, I could.
Correct.
But just to say, like you say, if I observed something that was so gross and something of that nature, just because I observed it and there was no physical injury, then I couldn't make a claim.
That's right.
Gotcha. You know, that might need to be a claim because, you know, little Bobby and them can run a teacher crazy, man.
Oh, little Bobby can make everybody have PTSD.
I'm telling you, man, little Bobby and them don't be playing when they come down them hallways. They don't want to get no homework out. They don't play. They're not playing with these teachers. You know, because sometimes some of these schools are little compact zones, man. And it's sad to say that. And the fear that some of these teachers have, you know, going in and every day and dealing with these students. And but I understand where we're going because you got to hold costs down.
Correct.
When you start talking about mental capacity, that could be.
It's tricky.
Yeah, it's real tricky. It's real tricky. You could get out there spending a bunch of money on that. We just need to get them some mental health some other kind of way.
And then, you know, and some people don't realize it, but, you know, the state of Alabama is immune. We have sovereign immunity for the state. And so we are allowing a recovery for people. We're not waiving sovereign immunity, but we're allowing recovery for people that are injured on the job like this.
Gotcha. I don't know where we are here, but keep moving. About 10 more. Do you have another amendment? You had all those.
That's my only amendment, Senator.
Okay. Well, you know, I never had a problem with finding 10 minutes.
Telling you what.
This feels like the heaviest load I got on my shoulder right now because you asked me to do it.
Maybe what we need is let the senator
maybe
from
I'm just on
Montgomery.
my own flowing, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I hadn't made you mad yet. But we know what happens when I make you mad.
Yeah. Mr. President, I would like to yield to the lady from Jefferson.
Senator from Jefferson, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman from Jefferson. Senator Gavan, I want to thank you for bringing this bill as a former teacher. And I think I relayed one instance to you when I was in the classroom teaching. I was at another school. I did not know at the time as a teacher that we did not have any kind of workman's compensation. Funny story, but true. I was neighborhood president, and we would go around to different neighborhoods. And I had gone to one of the neighborhoods, and in Birmingham, the police officers, the public works, and the fire department members all attend the neighborhood meetings to give them updates of what's going on in their particular area. Well, on this particular day, the police officers were there, and they were meeting at the old Caraway Hospital at that particular time. And I was sitting out in the lobby waiting to go in to meet with them. And I was just telling the officers, I said, you know, I really appreciate all that you all do, but I couldn't do your job, you know. It's just too dangerous. And so one of them asked, well, what do you do? What profession are you in? I said, very proudly, you know, I'm a school teacher. He said, oh, both of them. Oh, no, we would not have your job. And it made me think, because a few years prior to that, in the district that I represent, we had an absentee parent who came home and the grandparents had guardianship of the child. But as children always do, they complain. You know, what's going on at school, and the child complaining about the teacher. So the mother gets upset. She goes to the school with a baseball bat, and she physically assaults that teacher, beat her senseless, broke bones, put her in the hospital, and she was in the hospital for months. I never knew that she didn't have any kind of
90 days.
And the thing of it is that if you have sick days, you have to use all your sick days. I'm sure she used all her sick days. Before I left teaching, they were talking about, a sick bank where if you had extra days and somebody was pregnant, they would had extended pregnancy and had complications or what have you. But it could be whatever situation that you want to help your coworkers. If you have the days, if everybody gave up a day, that would help them so that they could continue to get paid. But can you imagine going through the legal ramifications of all of this, trying to deal with how you're going to have to pay your bills, medical bills, and then you've got other things that's already before you? I'm just shocked. And I was meeting with the Education Association, and they were explaining about all of the things. And I know teaching, because before I left, and I taught special needs kids, but I know teaching can be a very stressful, mentally straining, but it can also be kind of dangerous situation, because you do have irate people coming in and now, and we didn't have to worry about the proliferation of guns and everything. We still having the tornado drills or whatever. We're not worried about active gun shooter drills. But we don't realize that we entrust our most precious possession to those teachers, those administrators in the classroom to keep them safe. And oftentimes teachers are not safe. So again, I want to just thank you for bringing this legislation. It is much needed. It is overdue. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. President?
Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you so much. Senator Grant, thank you for this bill. As my colleagues have already said, one of the things that we recognize is, as you and I have talked about this, that nowadays, even more so, especially when we have young people who are expressing are challenged with behavioral disorders, all types of things that are happening, put our teachers in the line of fire on a daily basis. And what I like about this bill is that it puts some meat on the bones, right? If we say we respect our teachers, that we need our teachers, and we want to do right by our teachers, this is one path that's a necessary path towards doing that. And I didn't know, just as Senator Coleman Madison just said, and I've been a teacher, classroom teacher for 17 years in administrative work. I had no idea that we didn't have workers' compensation in our public system. So this is a step in the right direction, a necessary bill. This is the reason, first of all, that I came into politics to do things like this. And so I do want to thank you. I want to, brag on you as much as I can for bringing SB 1. It was a priority for you to be sure this happens. And I just personally want to thank you for bringing this bill. And I look forward to voting with great vigor for this legislation.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate it. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
the
Thank
many
you, Mr.
kind
President.
words that people have come and shared with me about this bill and the cooperative spirit we've got. And this is another one of those, examples. I know many people think that both sides of the aisle are constantly at war. It's not the case. There are issues that east is east and west is west, and sometimes they have a hard time meeting. But this is one of those situations where we've all got public education employees in our district. They're critical to how we do business, how we, part of our, such a part of our fabric of our society. And this is a great way to take care of them. And because so many people just are not aware. I mean, I think, in fact, my daughter was hearing me talk about it. She's like, what do you mean we don't have workers' compensation coverage? So it's something that many are not aware of, but it's very important. Okay. So at this time, if there are no further questions, we did adopt the amendment, correct?
No, we have not adopted it yet.
Okay, so this time I've moved for adoption of the amendment using previous roll without objection.
Seeing no objection, that's what you call a short roll on adoption of the amendment.
Strawbritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes and 0 nays. The amendment is adopted. Senator Gavan.
Thank you. At this time, I'd move for a final passage using previous roll without objection.
Seeing no objections, would this call the short roll for final passage as amended?
Strawbritton, Mr. Williams.
The bill receives a vote of 32 ayes and 0 nays for final passage. Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Senator, very much. Would the desk call the next bill, please?
On page 12 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 42 by Senator Melson regarding property, BR pending.
Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to adopt the BIR using previous row.
Seeing no objections to previous roll, would the desk call a short roll for adoption of BIR?
Strawbritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes, no nays.
The BIR has been adopted, 32 ayes and 0 nays. Would the desk call the bill?
Thank you, Mr. President.
On page 12 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 42 by Senator Melson regarding property.
Senator Melson, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to adopt an amendment.
Would the desk receive the amendment?
Amendment to Senate Bill number 42 by Senator Melson. Replace line 26 on page 1 with the following. Replace line 52 on page 2 with the following. Replace line 65 on page 3 with the following.
Senator Melson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. What this bill does is if there's an abandoned road through your property or anybody's property that has, for some reason, decided not to be incorporated or used in another situation, it allows for that abandoned road to be given back to the previous landowner or the current landowner or the original if they petition the governing body in that area. And I think my colleague would like to ask a question or amendment or...
Mr. President.
Senator, you recognize.
Thank you, sir. I have an amendment to offer concerning these property owners. And I think Senator Melson's going to accept this as a friendly.
We have amendment pending already right now, Senator. Just give us a minute.
I'm sorry, that wasn't about my amendment. Let me adopt my amendment using previous roll call if no objection.
Seeing no objection, with the desk call a short roll.
Strawbritton, Mr. Williams.
Senator Melson's amendment has been adopted, 32 ayes and 0 nays. Back to you, Senator Melson.
Thank you. No question about my amendment. You just want to offer yours?
Correct.
Senator, you recognize.
Okay, thank you. I want to offer another amendment.
Would the desk receive and read the amendment?
And this amendment basically just says that if there are two landowners and they don't agree to close the entire right-of-way, hold on just a second. They got to get something changed on it.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Melson, we recognize you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think my colleague from Mountain Brook has a question or statement.
All right, with the senator from Mountain Brook, you recognize.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Can you explain this? So this will be county and state?
That's correct.
City?
And municipality, that's correct.
And municipality.
Yes, and it's just because there's a lot of abandoned roads. I know a farmer that had an old highway coming through his property, and they moved another one over there, another road just south of it. And now his property has a abandoned road. He'd like to be able to fence it, farm it, and put it into his property, and this would allow him to do that.
Sure, I have a friend that has the exact same situation. That's why I was asking. Currently, what is the law on that now?
I think it's at their discretion. That amendment I had says they shall, if there's no reason not to, essentially. So that's what that last amendment we just added on did.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
I think Senator Sessions, you have a comment?
Yeah, while
Senator Sessions, you recognize.
Dutch is getting his amendment ready. All landowners have to agree, right? If it's multiple landowners to close the right-of-way?
That's correct. I mean,
it's basically,
I think
standard procedure, but
yes, and I think there may be a amendment that says if that Senator Stutz would like to offer that may affect that, if you'd like to.
Mr. President.
Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you again. We have the error in the amendment corrected now. What my amendment does is it simply says that there are two landowners.
Senator, if you would give the desk a minute to read your amendment, then I'll come right back to you so you can explain it. Would the desk read the amendment?
Amendment to Senate Bill 42 by Senator Stutz. Replace line 62 on page 3 with the following. Replace line 65 on page 3 with the following.
Senator Stutz, you recognize.
Okay, now I'll give you an explanation. It says if there are two landowners and one of them wants to close the right-of-way, that they can close it to the midline of the right-of-way. So one landowner could not keep the other landowner from closing part of the right-of-way. And Senator Melson and I have talked about that, and I think he's accepting it as a friendly amendment. So
I do.
If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Are you offering an amendment for
I am.
consideration? All right, then what's your pleasure?
We use adopt the amendment using previous.
I move to adopt the amendment, use the previous roll.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, that's what you call the previous short roll.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
The Stutz amendment has been approved, 32 ayes and 0 nays. So the amendment has been adopted.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Senator. Senator Melson, we're back to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess a year away makes us a little rusty, doesn't it? So,
yeah, a little bit.
so I'd like to go move for final passage using previous roll with no objection.
All right. Seeing no objection, with the desk called for the short roll for the final passage as amended.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
32 ayes.
The bill receives a vote of 32 ayes and 0 nays for final passage as amended. A good job, Senator Melson.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah.
We're through with the calendar.
Now, Mr. Pro Tem, you know you recognize Mr. Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to call up SB 67.
Clerk, call the bill.
On page 1 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 67 by Senator Jones and Chasteen regarding Veterans Affairs.
About to. Mr. President.
Yes, Senator.
You're
recognized.
Thank you. We've had some diligent work from the members, and we have come to an agreement on a substitute, which I'm going to offer and be happy to discuss about with the members here in the body. So at this time, I'm going to offer the sub.
Will the desk receive the substitute?
I got one copy, and I want
Substitute for Senate Bill 67 by Senator Jones.
All right.
You're recognized, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've already adopted a BIR on this. Let me talk through the changes really quickly. After talking with members here and hearing feedback from different veterans organizations, we've come to the consensus that we will make the, as current legislation stated, make the Commissioner of the Department of Veterans Affairs a cabinet level position and leave in place the current structure of the Veterans Affairs Board with a couple of caveats. Let me explain what those caveats are. Some of the organizations have expressed a desire to make a reappointment to the board. So upon the passage of this act, those veteran service organizations can renominate by sending 3 nominees to the governor. So it's not going to make any change to who's on the board or the makeup of the board. It's just going to allow the governor to allow those organizations to submit new names to the governor if they wish to. I also will note that oversight of the Department of Veterans Affairs was a key stakeholder issue from the veterans service organizations. They asked about continue to have some oversight authority. Even though we are making this a cabinet level agency, the cabinet official answers to the governor, these VSOs wanted to have some oversight in the process. And so we have oversight language in there that they will function in that capacity. And that includes, let me make this very clear, the Veterans Assistance Fund that is in existence right now will continue to be managed and overseen by the board that's currently in place. So I want to make that very clear. No change will take place in terms of the Veterans Assistance Fund. So I see my friend Senator Carnley across the way. Do you have any questions?
No, I think you.
Excuse me,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Would you like to be recognized, Senator Carney?
Yes, sir.
You're so recognized.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you keeping me in order. I'm not used to order. It just kind of gets, you just go. And no, I do want to just tell you I appreciate it. I know this has, been a lot of work over the last couple of weeks of, back and forth and trying to work with our VSOs and our veterans. And, sometimes we say VSOs and assume that encapsulates all of our veterans, but, there's veterans out there that, are not part of the VSOs, and we reach out to them too. And I know they've been, they've communicated with us, the goal of this bill. And it's like I've said, at the end of the day, that's what we got to look at is the veteran. That's the constituent, whether they're North Alabama, South Alabama, wherever. That's who we've got to think about when we pass legislation like this. And I don't know that you ever get something I've never found where you can pass legislation and make both sides happy. And I'm not saying that, but I think the legislative process has worked out here. We've met. We've talked through some of the issues, the concerns, and sometimes when you make one change, you can't always give back over here. But, I think what we've tried to do is just make sure that that those that had concerns understood we heard them, and we did. Now, it gets misconstrued sometimes about, are we listening? And we've tried to reach out, or I have, and met with some of these groups. Some of them are here in the audience today. We appreciate their efforts. I mean, they're coming up here on their own time and their own money and buying hotel rooms and paying for gas to get up here. And they're representative of a large group. And so, what we've done here, when I say we, I mean, this hadn't been one person. It's a lot of folks working together, bringing concerns and saying, hey, I need this, or I can't get by with this. And so that's what I think we've done here with the VSOs being able to maintain, when I say control, like how that board is composed. They're the ones that nominate them, and they're in place based on their population within the state. So, I think in being able to keep that, again, I think that helps out a lot because it makes sure that those people are represented on the board and they have input on what goes on in this department, which, again, is a state department now and has a lot more ability as far as working with the whole governor's office to bring about things that we can do better for our veterans. And, I think that's one thing I've tried to communicate to people. I don't think there's anybody going into this process say, what can we take away? What can we add? And sometimes it's just different opinions of how you do that. Like if you ask somebody, hey, how are you going to get to this place? They may take a different road, but they still end up at the same place. And, and I appreciate your work on this. I know you've taken a lot of heat for it, but for people that don't know you personally like I do, I know your heart was in the right place and you really have tried to listen and to work through it. And it's not something that you've taken lightly, and I appreciate that. So I commend you on listening and working with us, and and everybody kind of going back and forth. So I really don't have anything to add. I just want to say thank you, and hope that this is the beginning of great things for our veteran community. I know you sit on as chairman of the board, and we brag on that a lot back home, trying to become the most military and veteran friendly state in the union. And to me, this is a place where we can begin to start and work with that. So
yeah. Well, thank you, Senator. And you're right. The most important thing is that we serve veterans and that we meet them where they are, and we see to their needs. And so this model of keeping the current structure of the board, I think, makes them happy that they have some consistency in the way things are operating in that regard. But having the buck stop with the governor and having a cabinet level agency helps bring it into the fold of state government. So I'm excited about it. I think we have a good
And I think, having that, just like us, I mean, we're wanting to do what's best for our constituents, and I don't think anybody's going to go out there and say, hey, we want to do something that's going to be contrary or, adversarial with our veterans. And so, I think this really does put them in a good position, that community that we can work with and to help. And, again, I appreciate their dialogue and their help because they've been really good to work with. They've traveled not just in my district, but in other places to work, to meet stakeholders, and to give their opinion. And they've done it, in a good way, not angry and fighting, but hey, what can we do to be involved in the process, and how can we, make sure you're hearing us and what's good for us and our families. And, so with that, I appreciate, the opportunity to work on this with you, and been a good learning experience for me. So thank you for your time and allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Senator. And if there are no other questions, I will move to adopt the substitute used in the previous role.
Any objection to use previous role? Secretary call long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
Twenty 22 ayes, 6 nays, and 2 abstentions.
Mr. President.
The substitute has been adopted.
Mr. President.
I'd yield to Senator Figures for dialogue and questions.
Senator Figures, you've been recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Jones, this has been a very controversial piece of legislation involving our veterans, and God knows all of us as Americans owe our lives to them who gave in some cases, their lives, or they certainly put their lives on the line so that we can continue to enjoy the freedom that we have here in this country. So I think it's very important that when they are involved, that they do have a chance to know exactly what we're voting on. Mm-hmm. And since I've been here, of course, I started my 29th year 2 weeks ago. And since I've been here, I've always been very apprehensive about subs, especially when they come at the last minute. You don't have time to read it all word for word, especially when they're rushed, especially when they're controversial bills with controversial issues. So all I'm doing is coming to the mic to ask you. Now, I did vote for your substitute to be adopted for us to vote on. But I would just like to ask you on behalf of all the veterans in the state who will be affected in some way by this legislation, that you would at least give them an opportunity to read this bill, that you would give even us as senators time to read this bill before we have the final vote on it. And if that's not the case, and this piece of legislation is going because they have not had a chance to really vet this bill and know exactly what we're voting on. With that, I'll take my seat. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Senator. Senator Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you, Senator. Pro Tem, do you have any questions or discussion?
No, sir, I'm good on that.
Okay. Well, I understand if there are no other questions or
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, let me just respond quickly to Senator Figures, and then I know my colleague across the way has some questions. We have sat down with veterans. We have heard from them. The one consistent thing we heard from folks around the state was that they would like the current board structure to stay in place. We have honored that. They were fine. Even the folks involved on the current board have said they didn't mind the commissioner becoming a cabinet level agency. So I do believe we've sat down and heard from folks. A lot of constituent feedback went into this bill. And I see my colleague across the way may have some questions. So I'm going to yield to Senator Elliott for questions and discussion.
Senator Elliott, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the bill sponsor. I want to echo my colleagues' concerns from Mobile. I have had this document for 5 minutes and 15, 16, 17 seconds now. I started a stopwatch when I got it. I'm on page 5. This is an incredibly important piece of legislation for our veterans. You did very good work in putting together the amendments from last week so that our veterans could look at it, and they've done that. They've let their voices be known on here. I think that they deserve the opportunity to look at this as well, and I know that I deserve the opportunity to look at it. And if not, then despite my holding you in very high regard and what you're trying to do here, and if I haven't had the time to read it, then I'm going to be with my colleague and I'm going to be a no vote on something that might be a good thing. I just can't do it after 6 minutes and 4 seconds, 6 seconds. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator.
You're recognized.
Mr. President.
Senator Figures, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now, I did Zoom the bill as soon as I got an email because I made sure that they sent me the email as soon as they got it, which was just a few minutes ago. But even from there, my people are telling me that it still makes the board an advisory board only with no real power. Everywhere the board once had authority, it now says either the commissioner or the department. So it's not like it was before, with the exception of the commissioner being appointed by the governor with the 3 names given by the board. So again, I would just ask that you all would at least carry this over until Thursday, until people have really had a chance, as well as the senators, to read the legislation. And I too hold you in high self-esteem.
Thank you, Senator.
In high esteem.
And I would just simply say to your question, there's no way to have the commissioner be a cabinet official and have them answer like to the board. You see what I'm saying? So that's why it uses the word oversight, and they continue to have oversight as is already stipulated in law over the Veterans Assistance Fund. So that's where.
Well, maybe it doesn't need to be a cabinet position, because after sitting on the Sunset Committee for 20 some odd years, a lot of the boards come through that committee after they are audited by the examiner's office every 4 years, sometimes 3 and 2. But that is something that needs to be discussed. as an example with this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. President, may I be recognized?
Yes, you may, Senator.
And I echo, I guess, the same thing. I just got this. I want to support this. I really want to vote. If this is what if what I'm being told this is, I really want to be able to vote for it. But without reading it, I can't do that. And I want to support the theory what we've been working under. And I'd love to carry it over till Thursday also.
Thank you, Senator. I'd like to yield for questions and discussion to my colleague, no motions.
Okay. Senator Butler, you recognize.
Senator Jones, veterans are important to every person in this room, not just members, others. We have not had a chance to see this, read it, do anything with it. I would like to second the motion to carry this thing over till we can have a chance to
Point of
read it.
order, I yield for discussion, no motions. So I still have the mic, unfortunately, Senator, but thank you.
That's the difference between a no and a yes vote.
I understand.
Right there.
Thank you, Senator. If there are no other questions, I'd move for final passage using the long roll.
No further discussion. Then let's call the long roll for final passage as amended.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shillnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smithman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
The bill received the votes of 21 ayes, 9 nays, and 1 abstention. The bill has received final passage as amended.
Mr. President.
Mr. Pro Tem, you are definitely recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. I'm point of personal privilege for a second.
Yes, sir.
Senator Jones, thanks for working on this bill. We had a lot of discussion, especially with the gentleman in these first 2 rows that are right up here behind the scenes and having to work all this out today. I know there's been some confusion on what the bill has and what it hasn't, but when we're getting signed off by the VSOs and the majority of this body, I want to say thank you for your leadership on that, okay, sir?
Thank you, Pro Tem.
You're welcome. At this time, Mr. President, I'd like to take up House Message SB 70.
What did they just call the House message?
Message from the House, Mr. President. The House of Representatives has amended, as therein shown and is amended, has passed the following Senate bill and returned same herewith to the Senate. Senate Bill number 70 regarding the Alabama Veterans Resource Center Act.
Mr. Pro Tem.
I'd like to yield to my colleague for explanation if you would like to. If not, then we can go forward with the motion to concur with the House.
Thank you, Pro Tem. This is the other Veterans Bill for the Resource Center that passed unanimously out of this chamber, as I recall. The House did a couple things. Our version did not require the Open Meetings Act. They added that. They also clarified that the board is subject to the Open Meetings Act and can go into executive session to discuss sensitive issues such as veteran suicide, mental health, and PTSD. So a good amendment, in my opinion, and I would move that we concur with the wishes of the House.
I'll make a motion, Mr. President, to concur with the House.
We need a long vote on that. All right, the motion has been made to concur with the House with the desk called the long roll for concurrence in the House amendment.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
The vote is 29 ayes and no nays to concur with the House amendment.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Pro Tem.
I'd like to have an announcement or a point of personal privilege, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. You're fully recognized.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Alabama State Senate, we've had a lot of discussion back and forth. We've passed a lot of bills today that we've gone back, but one thing I think that we all can agree upon is that in our own way, through our own district, we support our veterans. Today, we've got a few veterans that are here in the galley. We'd like for you gentlemen to stand with us, please. And also, Senator Albritton, you're a veteran with us. Would thank you for your service anyways. You're already standing. Thank you. We have a lady. I did not, where's the, okay. I can't hear you, Mindy, if that was you. All right. So at this point, I'd like to take a motion, Mr. President, to adjourn until 9:30 on Thursday, February 20th, leaving the journal open for House messages and committee reports. Thank you.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposers, ayes have it. Let's go home.